14-year-old schoolgirl killed in broad daylight. Jodi Jones had everything to live for, but her life was cut cruelly short when she was brutally attacked.
The police have got Jodi being murdered at 5:15 that day, and witness statements for the stepfather and the mother and others have got Jodi being seen at 5:30, so Jodi couldn't have been killed at 5:15. The search party, shall we call it, consisted of Luke Mitchell and his dog, Jodi's grandmother, Jodi's sister and Jodi's sister's boyfriend.
See, when she was found, this will be a wee bit horrific. What condition was she in?
I'm just going to say it. I've found Alice Walker says it was like seeing an animal on a butcher's slab.
Now that I've got you sitting in the chair, who do you think killed Jodi? The man himself, Scott Forbes, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me.
It's an absolute honour to have you in the studio, mate. A massive character. This episode will be based on the murder of 14-year-old Jodi Jones, the trial by media of her boyfriend at the time, Luke Mitchell. A lot of people want to know the ins and outs of this case. I know you've done a lot of research over the years. 20 years you've been on the case?
Well, I first spoke out the case in 2003.
Right.
So I started researching it probably 2006, then then 2010, 2011 I was his lawyer. In 2021 I went back into it and wrote a book, and the case has been part of my life probably for 20 odd years.
It's been powerful, mate, because as I spoke to you in the car, I've watched a lot of stuff on the case now, researched it myself. I watched your documentary with Hawaii 5-0, very well put together. It was a great walk through the full scene, the murder scene, everything about it. So we'll dive into that a lot in this episode. But before we go right into this story, if you could speak me through like what Jodi was like as a girl and maybe her family as well.
Listen, Jodi was a 14-year-old, probably outgoing, very mature 14-year-old. She comes from listen, I don't want to be too derogatory here, but Jodi comes from a very troubled background. Her brother was psychotic, her mother was psychotic. Her granny was a matriarch for a very, very large family. It's not just the Joneses, there's Walkers, there's Inksters. It's a huge family in that local area Jodi comes from. Some of them are really nice people, some of them are nice and nice. And Jodi herself was very outgoing. She was like a goth. If you pictures of Jodi always stick in my mind as like the wee goth with the glasses, you know. She's a very mature girl for 14.
I remember the case. I was only 17 at the time, so it was a shock all round because she was so young, and it was such a brutal murder. What about her family then? Can you describe them to me, like her brother and her mother and stuff?
Listen, I've been derogatory, so I'll just say it. Her brother's psychotic, very violent at the time, not so much now. Her sister is now a police officer, but at the time she was a heavy goth. Marilyn Manson freak. Marilyn Manson comes into this case quite often. But at the time of Jodi's murder, her sister and her sister's boyfriend, Stephen Kelly, were heavy goths. Hash smokers, soap bar. Do you remember soap bar?
Soap bar, yeah. Smoked it myself, Scott.
This is very important in this case. 9 bars involved in the morning of Jodi's death. Psychosis caused by, her brother was psychotic. Paranoid caused by smoking cannabis resin. So, Jodi come from a very colourful background. That's probably a better way to put it, you know. Some good influences and a lot of bad influences as well, you know.
It was just to get an insight anyway.
Of course.
So we'll go right into the case now, right? So it's like I want to take you back to the very first day. The first day the case began, really, because the day she was reported missing, right? How long was she missing for before she was reported?
Listen, this is a weird one. Jodi was... the police have got Jodi being murdered at 5:15 that day. It's now the Scottish Criminal Case Review Commission and witness statements for the stepfather and the mother and others have got Jodi being seen at 5:30. So Jodi couldn't have been killed at 5:15. So Jodi was last seen, a positive identification of Jodi was approximately 5:30, 20 or 30 metres away from her front door, right? And that night, Jodi is missing at 11 o'clock at night, approximately. 5 to 11 there'll be phone calls, or 10 to 11 there'll be. So just say approximately 11 o'clock that night, the mother and the family started reporting Jodi missing, phoning the police. I found that very strange, I must tell you straight for the off. Because Jodi was, not a wild teenager. She was a wild teenager smoking hash and staying out to 1 in the morning and 12 at night. And so it wasn't very unusual for Jodi to be still out of the house at 11 o'clock at night. But that night in particular, the grandmother always says she just knew it. I've been pulled for this a few times. The grandmother just had a feeling something was wrong that night, and the mother, and so they started making Jodi missing about 11 o'clock that night. Phone calls started going to the police, and other people were asking where Jodi was, do you know.
So what was the last sighting? What time did you say?
Roughly 5:30 at night.
Was that down that lane?
No, nowhere near the lane.
Right.
But if you go back up for the lane, if you leave the lane and you go back up towards Jodi's house, approximately 400 metres, 500 metres, Jodi was seen being followed by a man who's now identified as her brother. And that was at 5:30, approximately 5:30 at night. That's going by statements for the stepfather and all that, when people left and when people didn't leave, and the statements changed over the period. But Jodi was still living approximately 5:30 at night.
So it's only a small window between 5:30 and 11?
Definitely. That's when they reported her missing.
So see, when they've reported her missing, right?
Yes.
As I say, I was guided a lot by watching your documentary, 'cause it really took me into the case.
Mm-hmm.
So I know there was people searching for her and stuff like that. Why were they searching the woods?
Listen, the search party, shall we call it,
Yes.
consisted of Luke Mitchell and his dog, Jodi's grandmother, Jodi's sister, and Jodi's sister's boyfriend. But her stepfather and her brother are 500 metres away from that path. Everybody, Rowandyke's path, everybody keeps reverting back to Rowandyke path. That's where Jodi's allegedly walked, or the lane where she's allegedly seen by Andrina Bryson, right? So the stepfather doesn't go looking for his stepchild, and her brother doesn't go looking for his sister. They rely on an old woman who allegedly went to her bed that night early to travel 2 miles for a place called Mayfield. So they walked from Mayfield down to Rowandyke's path, probably 2 miles as the crow flies. They never looked for Jodi on the way down. They pass Luke Mitchell's mum's caravan, or it's to the left-hand side, but they pass it, they pass woodland areas, they pass fields, they pass a bowling club, not wanting to pass a football club. As they travelled in a path to the football clubs to the right-hand side, so nobody goes looking for Jodi on the way from Mayfield to, and nobody goes looking for Jodi's house to the path, which is 500 metres away. So they rely on an old woman, the sister and the sister boyfriend, to go to Rowandyke's path, and then Luke Mitchell walks up the path and meets them at the top of the path, and the granny, Alice Walker, the late Alice Walker, who's now dead, she insists that they go back down the path to look for Jodi. My opinion, over the years looking at this, Alice Walker knew where Jodi was. That's only my opinion. Do you know?
Say, watching it back there, when I did watch it, I seen the scene in the documentary. You put the path, so Luke Mitchell's walked up, but he's went by where the body is,
yes,
with the dog, and as you said, the grandmother has then encouraged them to go back,
yes,
down to where the scene is,
yes,
and the dog has then went up onto the wall,
yes,
and started barking,
yes,
and Luke Mitchell has then went over the wall. Is that right?
Logic tells you. Luke Mitchell goes past the V in the wall with the grandmother behind him, Jodi's sister Janine and Stephen Kelly. He says when the dog goes past the V, approximately 18 or 19 metres past the V in the wall, the dog starts reacting and putting its paws up in the wall. So when he walks back, the V in the wall is only access to the woodland. So when he goes over the woodland, he walks towards the direction where the dog had indicated. And when he'd done that, he's seen...
So he's found her?
He found her.
What time did they find her at?
Oh, listen...
Roughly, do you know?
Roughly 11, 12 o'clock at night.
So it's pretty fair when she's been reported missing. It's found
very,
pretty
very quick, very quick.
That's
very
very
quick.
strange, that, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the granny had to walk for 2 miles away from Mayfield, and all of a sudden they could tell her to go directly to this V in the wall. The V in the wall had been visited that day by Jodi's cousins, Jodi's friends, Jodi's cousin's dad. He'd visited the V in the wall. The V in the wall is the break that takes you over from one side of a field, if you like. For a field into a woodland strip and then into another field. It's not the only accent. I think there's 5 accesses on the whole length of the wall, right? And the V is only the V is the last one is if you're coming from Jodi's house, and the first one if you're coming from Luke's house. But it's an access. It's an opening in the wall, if you like. Do you know that it's easily accessible? So that's where Luke Mitchell climbed over, and then he went to his left to where his dog had indicated. Now, everybody says Luke Mitchell walks directly to the bodies. The search party did not say that. I'm going to... Janine Jones, Jodi's sister, Stephen Kelly, they all say the dog acted excitable, acted in a certain way. The statements all changed after a while, right? But their original statements all says the dog acted in a certain way, right? Years later, 2010, 2011, Carlton Place, I phoned a man who was reading some of the scripts and some of the statements, and I often wondered who trained this dog, how good it was. People try to experiment with dogs prior to trial, and they messed up in a big way. The lawyers messed up. They went to the pub instead of carrying out an experiment with dogs. But they had the dog that Luke Mitchell says found the body. They had that there, and they had the original trainer. And Jock Pride, his name is. So anyway, I phoned a man called Jock Pride for Carlton Place in Glasgow. Mr. Pride, blah, 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 we're Luke Mitchell's lawyers, and we're looking into the dog. He told me to fuck off. Just another parasitical lawyer. And I had to explain to him that I wasn't just here after money. There wasn't any money involved in this case now. And would he please talk to me? He met me and he was a genius. He described to me exactly how the dog would have reacted that night and why. And he had the dog reacting in the same way that Mitchell explained, Stephen Kelly explained, and Janine Jones explained. The dog's would sniff the air and point its nose up the way, and its front paws would be on the wall, because he was telling me about scent trails, how they would grasp the ivy and they would go up the wall, and the scent of the body would cling onto the leaves of the trees that were hanging over and stuff. All made logical sense. He drew diagrams and that for me. And I asked him, after he gave me a lecture, what his experience was. And he told me he was a regimental sergeant major in the Royal Veterinary Corps, specialising in Alsatian dogs. And he would take them for pups. And if they weren't very clever, they would keep them for defence work, to run the fence, to bite intruders. And if they were clever dogs, he would have them looking for explosives. And if they were really clever dogs, he would have them looking for humans and explosives. And I says, and how good was Mia? And he says, exceptional. Now, that word exceptional stuck in my mind. For an expert of dogs, I've got a decent understanding of dogs, I think. And this man was telling me the dog was exceptional. I asked him why he was never called as a witness. He says to me he was put on the Crown list, and the Crown never called him, and he says the defence was just too lazy to care. That was his words, no mine. So I took him at his word. And I took as I say, it wasn't just Luke Mitchell that described his dog, it was Janine Jones, Jodi's sister, and her boyfriend, Stephen Kelly, all described his dog acting in the same way. So the dog, in my opinion, found her with encouragement for Alice Walker, Jodi's grandmother. Jodi's grandmother knew where to go that night. That's only my opinion. People tell me I'm this or whatever I am. It's only my opinion based on what I've read over the years and what I've seen and who I've spoken to. Alice Walker knew where Jodi was to be found that night, and pointing them in that direction, and the dog done the rest of the work,
So see, take me into the investigation then after the body's found, because there's so many inconsistencies, there's so many things that have ruined the scene, contaminated the evidence.
Listen, see, listen, mate, can you even start with this? It's shambolic.
Because they also moved the body, didn't they?
Oh, listen, the first forensic scientist that arrived on the scene was too fat. I'm going to say that online. You know, she was too heavy and she had a sore back and she couldn't climb over the V. Anybody that knows that V isn't a difficult climb. There's a large stone at the entrance. If you stand on the stone at the entrance, you can lift your leg over it really, you know. I'm not saying everybody could climb it, but it's not a difficult climb. But if you weren't so lazy and you couldn't climb over that, you can walk a few hundred yards to the right or a few hundred yards to the left and you can enter the field without climbing anything and walked right directly where Jodi was found. But she was too lazy. For wanting a better description, she was too lazy. So she went home and Jodi's body was left out all night in the rain. Now, it rained that night. It didn't rain continuously throughout the night, but it rained. So you've got a wee girl tied up naked, apart from his socks, tied up with her trousers, lying out in the open and to the elements. Now, I didn't want to go too much, but there's foxes here, there's badgers here, there's rabbits here, it's raining, it's windy, and she was just left.
See when she was found?
Mm-hmm.
This will be a wee bit horrific. What condition was she in, and was she tied up, did you say? But
I mean, Jodi, I'm just going to say it. I've found Alice Walker says it was like seeing an animal on a butcher's slabby. And Jodi was as white as I've ever seen. The condition of Jodi is her arms are tied behind her back, wear trousers. She had wee blue ankle socks on, but they were put back on. They'd come off her feet, muddy, and they'd been put back on her feet by someone. And the socks were inside out with the mud on the outside of the socks, right? She had a defensive wound on her arm that cut right through the muscle. It appears that she's done that as somebody's tried to hurt her with a knife, and it sliced right through here. She was cut, one side of her face is cut from her ear to her mouth, wide. I'm doing that with my fingers because her face is sliced wide open. She had small cuts to her eyes, bruising to her head, hair pulled out, and blunt trauma to her head.
how many stab wounds did she have?
100 and, I'd be wrong to tell you. Somebody will pick me up if I say 200, maybe 300. She was stabbed so many times in the mouth, she's decapitated, apart from a small, thin skin at the back. I'm doing that with the wound because the wound's that thick on her neck, and she's cut here. Somebody's trying to cut the breast away. So we'll go into psychology of that later, you know, cutting away the mother, the attachment to the mother, and she's cut right across the stomach, down to here.
The severity of these injuries are
massive. My shoes. Listen, I've done a lot of murder cases and seen a lot of violence, and then autopsy reports and Jodi Jones' injuries are horrific.
So this is how it takes a crazy turn, because with those horrific injuries, if that was the murder scene where she was found, then there would be so much blood everywhere. But you, as I said, going back to the documentary, because I found it really intriguing, right, and interesting and horrific, as I said. But if that's not with the injuries, right, there's not a lot of blood at the scene. There's only one evidence of blood, and it's on the wall.
It's 900 millimetres up for the ground.
And how could that have got there?
I think it's when Jodi was dumped here. I think when the man's walks round the man, I'm calling him a man who, it's only a man big enough to carry it, but as he walked round the tree to dump the body, I think they cut for her neck as he's singing over her shoulder. It's the only logical thing I can come up with, but there isn't any blood, there isn't any. Listen, I've gave you a photograph, hope you're able to show it. There's one line of blood along the wall, 900 millimetres up. It's approximately 6 metres away from where Jodi's found. So how can blood jump 6 metres? I know we arterial. It's not arterial spray.
It's no blood splatter.
No, there's no arterial spray, and I think you can get 5 metres with that. But this is 6 metres away, and there's no blood on the ground. There's no pooley blood. There's nothing. There's no sign of a struggle. Nothing. Her bra's immaculate, apart from a tiny wee spot of blood that belongs to Stephen Kelly. Her t-shirt is clean. Her trainers are clean. Her socks are clean. We're talking with blood. There's no sign of a struggle on the ground, but Jodi's been beaten, dragged about with the hair, slashed and stabbed there and here. And very, very little blood. As I say, I've showed you a photograph of one photograph, and that's the only blood that's found at that scene.
So when you look into the investigation, then you wonder why. Surely the police would know that's no the scene of the killing.
Early reports says Jodi was dumped there. Dumped. I'm using the words in the early reports. It all changed because the morning after Jodi was found, Jodi had been left out all night in the rain. The morning after it, the forensic team that did arrive, they destroyed the whole crime scene. They marched all over it. They moved the body. They put her body onto polythene. The polythene had rainwater on it. Then they pulled the polythene. It reminds you of something like for a building site, you know. They then pull the polythene with Jodi lying on top of it across a crime scene. And then so the crime scene is damaged. They take hundreds of samples, obviously. They have to go through the motions. But the crime scene itself has been damaged. They cut branches to let better lighting so they could take better photographs. Oh, listen,
They moved the body?
They moved the body, put it on top of polythene, and then pulled the polythene. Dragged it right across the crime scene.
Ruining all the evidence?
Everything.
That's crazy,
The only thing I can tell you there wasn't any disturbance on the floor is because the crime scene photographs. You can examine them, but you can't examine the crime scene because it was... They butchered it. They botched the whole thing.
So take me into the aftermath then. So after that, right, the first day, how long did it take before they started really pinning it on Luke Mitchell?
An hour.
So he'd made his mind up. Who was the guy in charge of the case?
A guy called Craig Dobie.
Right.
Craig Dobie was doorstepped recently by somebody who works with me, and I'll not give his name for trolls, but they doorstepped him. Good afternoon, Mr. Dobie, you know. And all Dobie could say was they knew things about Luke Mitchell. We know things about Luke Mitchell that you don't, you know. That's his whole defence. He told the world he'd done a great police work. Him and Alan Turnbull worked together. Lord Turnbull, who's now Lord Turnbull, who's the advocate deputy, the prosecutor, they worked hand in hand together to build a case against Mitchell. Made a murderer of a schoolboy. Listen, within an hour of Jodi being found, Luke Mitchell got taken to the local police station, right? And they got what they call the full works. They stripped him naked. They took swabs for his hair, scrapings for under his nails, and they took all his clothes and photographed him. And nothing.
What ages look at the time?
14.
Right.
So he's, at that time, Alice Walker cradled Jodi, the grandmother. But she was driven away from the police station in a police car and taken back to Jodi's house for a cup of tea. Still wearing the same clothes that she just cradled her grand.
Covered in blood.
Stephen Kelly was taken to his father's house. I only found out recently by speaking to people. Kelly was taken to his dad's house and they took his shoes off him. But his clothes, he was allowed to keep his clothes, which were washed by Alice Walker, the same grandmother who I believe knew where the body was, who ended up threatening Crown Ministry, but we'll go into that later. So the only person within an hour of Jodi being found, Luke Mitchell, was the only person really was forensically examined. Well, photographed, scrapings, hair samples, nothing. And within, I think 2 days, 2 days, the press were telling the public the police were not looking for any other suspect. Now, if you tell the public you're not looking for anybody else, it tells you the person that they've got the person that they're looking for. So within 2 days, the whole of Scotland, if you like, especially the local community, knew or believed the Luke Mitchell, the police had got their man, Luke Mitchell.
So was this right away then? It became trial by media?
Yeah, 100%.
And this is where it just started to go mad because it was everywhere and they were painting him as this monster. You know, I remember it myself and with the photos and stuff like that.
Well, listen, the press, I'm going to name her again, I left her for Jane Hamilton, made a career. She told a podcast quite recently that she had solved the Luke Mitchell case. If it please anybody, read the 10 facts, the hard facts that convict Luke Mitchell. It's the biggest lot of shite, sorry for swearing, but the biggest lot of shite I've ever read in my life. And they fed the public this. Spoke about a missing knife. It's a wee lot back. They would use for cutting soap bar or fishing. It could not do the damage it was done to Jodi Jones, but they fed this to the public. Missing knife, he's a weirdo, he's this, he's that. Trial by media, I've never seen ever seen anybody so persecuted by the media did I see Luke Mitchell.
How long did it take until they charged him?
8 months.
Was it as long as that?
Or maybe even longer.
Because I remember seeing photos, he was at the funeral and stuff, wasn't he?
Well, see, the day of the funeral, he didn't go to Jodi's funeral.
Was he laying flowers? I seen a photo.
He went up after the funeral, right? The world media's here. Me personally, I'm going to criticise her for this. Corey Mitchell was terrible. The heat. I suppose she would be damned if she did and damned if she didn't, was the excuse. But whoever was advising her, terrible. She should never have went to that funeral, the graveyard that day, because the world media picked up on it and they turned it into a negative. You know, he went there to pay his respects with his dog, right? And he had a fag, and next thing, oh, look at this, the beast turns up. And then later that day, this is the trial by media. A man called James Matthews for Sky Television going to the house that day. But why Corey Mitchell ever allowed Sky into their house is mind blowing. But James Matthews comes from a local village called Newton Village, which is 3 miles away from where Jodi stays, right, and where Luke stays. And his brother was called Brian Matthews, the local police officer. So the local policeman who has been telling everybody in Dalkeith, every golf club, every football club, every boxing club, every miners club, every time Brian Matthews gets a chance, he's telling everybody in the local area, we've got the little bastard, we just can't get evidence, but we're waiting on it. We're waiting on forensic reports at the time. So Brian Matthews, the local cop, is telling everybody Mitchell's a killer. And then on the day that Jodi gets buried, Brian Matthews' brother James Matthews, for Sky News, is in Luke Mitchell's house questioning him and his mother. And he's asking Mitchell questions that only police could have asked Luke Mitchell under caution. So he's doing police work for me. Can I prove he was briefed by police? One of them would have to admit that to me, but it certainly appears that way, do you know? Right? Then that gets aired on Sky Television. And do you ever remember a TV programme called Cracker?
One of my favourites.
Was it? Right.
Yes.
Right. Cracker was based on a man called Dr. Ian Stevens. Clinical psychologist.
Is it Robbie Coltrane played there?
It was Robbie Coltrane, that's right. Ian Stevens watches that programme and he writes a report. He's written a report prior to the programme for the police anyway, telling them about the killer. And the killer definitely had mother issues because, see, Jodi's breast is cut. Here, somebody tried to cut the breast off of Jodi. And basic psychology tells you that she's cutting the ties away with your mother. So somebody's got problems with their mother. They want to cut ties with their mother psychologically. And that Ian Stevens has wrote a report for police. But he watches that Sky Television. And he tells BBC and the police and the report for the police that Luke Mitchell and his mother are having unnatural relationships. Take for that what you mean. So that's now in the public domain. Luke Mitchell's now sleeping with his mother. Now, there was no evidence of that. I've never seen any evidence to suggest that happened, although I've got a criminal psychologist telling the public that. And he's telling the police that based on an interview that Corey Mitchell gives Sky Television. Somebody should have advised her that day, please don't open your door to these people. So anybody's got any idea in the media, if they hound you and they can paint a picture, they can make an animal for a saint, you know, they can make an animal a saint or a saint an animal. They can, and they've done it with Luke Mitchell.
That's definitely what they've done, because I remember it well. As I say, I was only 17 at the time, but we were all convinced as well that he was a killer.
As in everybody.
Because of the way they portrayed him.
See, when I go back to 2003 and look back, listen, I took a man to the police the day after the murder. At the time, anybody investigates the case, call him number 2 or number 3 suspect. Number 1 suspect is always Joseph Jones. Always. Doesn't matter who looks at this case and looks at the evidence. Forget all the emotional side and the troll. Just look at the evidence of this case. Joseph Jones, Jodi's brother, comes out as number 1 suspect. Mark Kane comes out as number 2 or number 3. Stephen Kelly comes out as a suspect. That's Jodi's sister's boyfriend. And me personally, I don't think he's capable of killing that man. But his blood's on her bra and her semen's on his t-shirt. He's not got an alibi for the time of the murder. So he could have been the fall, in my opinion, he could have been the fall guy. But there's 4 or 5 suspects in this case, right, that all had more motive, more time than Luke Mitchell. But they painted Mitchell as the killer, and everybody, even me, I believe Mitchell was guilty. I just, when he went to court and he was found guilty, I thought, listen, he's guilty. They must have found some evidence. I'm laughing because it's genuinely funny because there isn't any evidence.
That's what I was going to ask you, because
there
it's
isn't
crazy
any.
Because I said to you, what did they have on him?
None.
Physical evidence.
Nothing.
Everything's all circumstantial.
Nothing.
And all bullshit, really.
See the circumstantial evidence without the press. Please, I ask anybody that's going, please go and put all your personal differences aside and I hate him and he's this and she's that and all. Stop all that. Please go and look at the 10 hard facts that convicted Luke Mitchell. The Daily Record fed this to the public. 10 hard facts, 10 hard facts. What hard facts? A missing knife. The knife is impossible. Here's what the Daily Record told the public. There was I read this just last week, so I'm very confident what I'm telling you. The forensic team, at the very beginning, they found a condom 15 metres away from where Jodi was found. When you climb over a V, there's like a wee gang hut there, like stones and chopped down trees where people sit and smoke hash and drink and whatever, right? And Jodi's 15 metres away. And just at that site, there's a used condom full of fresh semen. The Daily Record tell the world, don't worry about the police investigations, first class. That condom had nothing whatsoever to do with the murder because Jodi wasn't sexually abused. We're talking about a wee girl fucking lying naked with socks on, her hands tied behind the back, and it's no sexual. The police told everybody the killer was sexually embarrassed. We're looking for somebody that could be sexually embarrassed, but all of a sudden this condom didn't become important. The Daily Record fed this to the public. This Jane Hamilton, I'm going to name her again, named and shamed, no, like this or none to do. But I'm reading Forensic last week, who told the police that condom was number one priority to find the owner of that condom. They never found that owner till like 3 years later because he committed another crime and it came up in the database, and they went and spoke to him and they cleared him right away. He couldn't tell you what. He says he was in the wood having a clean wank. Have you ever heard of that?
Never heard it.
A man climbs into the woods and puts a condom on to masturbate, leaves the condom there, and that's why he was there, and he just accepted it. That tells you roughly what the whole crime scene is. So the 10 hard facts, please, I ask everybody, read it with an open mind. And anybody with intelligence reading this, as you think, fucking hell, this is what convicted a boy of murder. And circumstantial evidence, he was allegedly seen on a path. Right, and when they got to court, the person who's seen him for a Kodak Instamatic camera image couldn't identify him in court. That the case should have just collapsed, because therefore, if he isn't that person, how can it be him? And the whole thing.
There's no evidence at all.
None.
Connecting him to that crime.
Sean told us a good question. Read this and tell me how it's possible. Well, I've asked this 100 times. How is it possible to have a physical fight with a person, pull their hair, punch them, kick them, drag them, strip them, mutilate them, and while you're doing it, while she's still alive, cut right through the muscle in the arm of defensive wound? I'm doing that because that's how it appears, right? And then slice her face in two, and there isn't a forensic link. How is that possible?
It's impossible. And as you said as well, it's the time frame of it all. No witnesses. He's walking by it. So he's supposedly done the murder, walked all the way back to his mum's house, washed his clothes because he had the same clothes on that day, and then went back out looking for her, found the body, and never had any evidence on him.
Listen, see, if she was killed at 5:15, which the police have to put because that's the only time frame they have, I think he's got 50 minutes all in to commit such a gruesome murder, get home about a mile and a half away, clean up, although the residue under his nails is dirty and his hair's dirty, so he couldn't have washed up, and then to be seen at the top of his street as in a positive ID, I think approximately 45-50 minutes later. That in itself is virtually impossible. But then 2014, the Scottish Criminal Case Review Commission have Jodi in a positive sighting near her home at 5:30. So if Jodi's alive at 5:30, which the Commission are now accepting, right, because it's a positive, Jodi was never identified on that path. Angina Bryson says that she's seen a boy arguing with a female, and she points Luke Mitchell out photographs. But when it goes to court, she can't pick him. So Jodi's alive at 5:30. So Luke Mitchell, I think it's 5 to 6. He's seen at the top of his street, 2 miles away, 2.5 miles. Around about that. So he's got 25 minutes to somehow get Jodi for her home, approximately to where she's found, 1,000 metres, 1,500 metres. Killer, stripper, mutilate her, then travel an hour, mile and a half, 2 miles to his home, and then sitting at the end of the path waiting on his pals. 25 minutes later. It's just impossible, the whole thing. None of it makes sense, Jim. But at the time, the police were convinced it was Luke Mitchell. And the first month, listen, the whole thing is botched. I keep using that word, but the whole investigation, they never investigated Jodi Jones's murder. I'm going to say that right now. Craig Dobie, in my personal opinion, should be jailed. Him and a couple of other officers in that murder squad, they need imprisoned. They need criminally charged for, I was going to say for negligence, but it's not just negligence. They made a murder
falsifying.
And the very difficult thing with that is they had help from a man called Lord Alan Turnbull. He orchestrated the whole investigation, but it wasn't an investigation. They convinced themselves Luke Mitchell done it, and then they made facts fit the crime rather than investigate. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
They made a murderer of a schoolboy. That's what they done.
Definitely fitted up here.
Definitely.
So I always wanted to ask you, now that I've got you sitting in the chair, who do you think killed Jodi?
Me personally, I think Jodi's brother killed her.
Right.
I know people don't like me saying that.
Do you have like a scenario of how the murder happened in your head?
I've based on purely on evidence. Forget the circumstantial stuff. Just hard evidence. He's the last man to see her. 5:30 at night. 10 weeks prior to the murder, he's sectioned 3 times. And 4 weeks before Jodi was killed, he was sectioned for beating up Jodi, smashing up her house. And in a very similar way, dragging her with the hair, ragdolling her and punching her. And, right, and Jodi was ragdolled. I use that word, they swung me about with the hair. And his psychology reports, which I've showed you, I've let you read them for the safety of your show, you know. I've put them online, and I've been warned, you know, don't go any further with. So I'm only speaking my mind. I'm not going any further. But 4 weeks prior to Jodi being murdered, Joseph was sectioned for beating Jodi up, and the psychology team did not want him to go home, because when he went home, his mum's a psychotic. She does not force him to take his psychotic drugs, antipsychotic drugs, and she permits him to smoke cannabis resin, which exaggerates his condition and makes him paranoid. For days before Jodi was murdered, he had been smoking bucket bongs. He bought a 9 bar, him and his pal John Ferris, the 2 moped boys we're going to talk about, right? They had a 9 bar a soap bar, and they'd been smoking bucket bongs for 2 or 3 days prior to Jodi's murder. So we've got a man who's taken antipsychotic drugs, who stops taking them all of a sudden. He's off them for 4 weeks. Anybody knows antipsychotic drugs, or any kind of drugs, once you come off them, it creates psychosis. And so he's psychotic, he's paranoid because he's smoking bucket bongs. He's got a history of beating Jodi up. He's got a history. He's carrying a large knife. I'm doing that, by the way, a large Bowie knife, or a half sword, one man called it, in his rucksack, because he's paranoid. He can't leave the home without it. On the day Jodi's murdered, she's seen getting followed by him, and he's wearing a large rucksack. So common sense tells you in that rucksack is a large Bowie knife, and then sometime after he's last seen her, Jodi's butchered by a large knife. Now I can say I'm not a forensic scientist. People will start shouting I'm not a forensic scientist, but I've sat over the 20 years with forensic scientists, pathologists, criminologists, lawyers, QCs, and we've debated Jodi's injuries were not caused by a stupid wee penknife like the Daily Record try and tell you. You know, Luke Mitchell wrote some stupid verse on it. I think it comes from Havana. Do you know the music? The greatest day that I've never seen, and Jodi's date of birth, and he stupidly wrote a verse on the pouch of the knife. That knife could not have inflicted injuries as you know Jodi Jones. Please listen, that was not caused. That's been caused by some kind of hunting knife or a samurai sword or a sword or a machete or something, you know. It wasn't caused by a stupid wee knife like the Daily Record told us, no.
So see, come back into the documentary, right? I like saying that because it was really interesting. Because it really took me right into the scene, right?
Probably the best bit of work I think I've done on this.
It was brilliant. But when Jodis took that path through the woods, obviously you've said you don't think she's went down that way. She's went this other way because that's the natural path that you would take. Do you think he's followed her until that could be a possibility, and then he's attacked her in the woodland?
But listen, see that night, Jodie seen at 5:30, right? He had already made arrangements to meet John Ferris, who's one of the moped boys who are at the V in the wall round about the time of the murder. They're over the wall. The V in the wall is an entrance into woodland strip in the field, beyond field. So they're there, or thereabouts. And so I'm surmising here that they were arguing or falling, and something happened, bad happened in the woods. Ferris and Dickie and Joe Jones and Jodi. He had already arranged to meet him at 6 o'clock. So if he's seen it leaving the home at 5:30 and Jodi and him leaving the home at 5:30 in the street, he's going to meet two guys that a mile and a half away travelling up one path, and Jodi's allegedly going down that path. So obviously they're going to meet in the middle way. They've all got mobile phones that were never tested. And
So
what happened over that wall that day, I don't know. Nobody knows.
What's the story with the two mopeds then? So I know that right after the murder, they scrapped the motorbikes, is that right?
Listen, that night, that afternoon, that early evening, they were there. Right?
So the moped leaning against the wall?
The wall. Now, see, when you lean over the wall, there is only one place they could have went, is over that V. Where did they go when they went over that V is only they know. Only Ferris and Dickie know that. What I can tell you is, Ferris was meeting Joe Jones anyway because they were sharing hash. They had a 9 bar between them, and they left each other at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock that afternoon, and we're going to meet back up at 6. So 5:30, is it 5 or 6 anyway? So did they all meet each other over that wall? I don't know. Nobody knows. My personal opinion, John Ferris and Gordon Dickie know exactly what happened that day. Right? And when they left there, they went directly to their father's house. David Dickie, right? David Dickie then goes back to the V in the wall with his 9 spaniel dogs. He walks directly to where they've just left. If you see the area, you could go left or right. You could walk for miles and miles without ever going any. You walk your dogs without going over that V in the wall. He that day coincidentally went exactly to that V in the wall, right? In 2021, I've shared the statement with you. Gordon Dickie.
Want some more water, Scott?
Please, I'll take
that glass over.
Gordon Dickie releases a statement in 2021. And he says if him and his dad are guilty, I think this is a Freudian slip. Right? If him and his dad are guilty of anything, is if they'd arrived at earlier either side, at the time that they did arrive, they could have saved Jodi. Me personally, I think that's probably true. I genuinely think Dickie Jr. I believe he's a decent big guy, by the way. I'll say that on record. Right. I don't think they tried to say up Luke Mitchell. I think they were just stupid young laddies covering up for their psychotic cousin. The psychotic pal who's went fucking flipped the lid and done whatever he's done, and I think they try to cover up for him. Wrongly. Say that right. And then once you've started covering up, I think they were in over their necks after that and they can't get out. The dad's a different kettle of fish. I think they left the V in that day and the dad went right back over with his dogs. He went to the press and looked, so I'm the great man that's going to solve this crime. This is how bizarre this crime is. David Dickie told the Sun newspaper that murder squad detectives were in his home and they were questioning him about his sexual advances towards Jodi, 14. at the time he'd be 50-ish. So a 50 middle-aged man anyway, getting questioned about his sexual relationships towards a 14-year-old murder victim, and he told him to get out of the house. Now, anybody that knows murder squad detectives, you're not telling them to leave your house unless you've got some kind of pull with them or some kind of influence. David Dickey had influence over the murder squad detectives, and he's telling that to the paper. Now, even more bizarre, his son's at the murder scene at the time allegedly Jodi was getting murdered. Because I'm only saying allegedly because the times are, nobody now knows when Jodi was killed. There was never proper testing and stuff, and we now know she was alive at approximately 5:30 when she's supposed to be killed at 5:15. So, but David Dickey gets used by the police. Now his son's at the murder scene with his cousin John Ferris, right? Police are asking him about his sexual advances towards Jodi, but the police also think it's right that they take him to where Jodi's found, and they're asking him his expert opinion about how a man would escape after killing him. He's got blood on his boots, so they can't then say he found his blood come from the murder or moving the body, because the police have took him in the murder scene. Now, never in my life, now I've read lots of everybody watches Cracker and fucking Taggart. You've never seen a murder case ever in your life before where they take a person of interest at least. If they're questioning a middle-aged man about sexual advances towards Jodi Jones, he's a person of interest at least. But they deem it fit to take him to the murder scene to ask him his personal opinion about how the murderer would have escaped from the scene. That's just the whole thing, right? So, when they gave that statement about if they had arrived a wee bit earlier, they could have maybe saved Jodi. I believe that to be the case. They also say that they've now got reservations about Mitchell was wrongly convicted. I believe they know that. But I don't think they set out to set up Luke Mitchell. I think they set out to save Joseph Jones, their pal, their cousin, their friend, you know, family friend. David Dickey was very close to the Jones family and all that. Right, but the police used this guy. Listen, there's allegations that he was a police informant. He was a police operative. He used to take on what I do know is he used to take shooting parties up the Lammermuir Hills with local police. Dalkeith police used to go up the Lammermuir Hills shooting, and he led the shooting parties with his dogs. So that's why the police went to him to ask him for his expert opinion. Imagine asking a man whose son's at murder scene, allegedly having sexual advances towards the murder victim, and they use him as an expert witness and take him in the murder scene, and then they discover blood on his boots, but they can't check where the blood came from, because even if it was Jodi's blood, he's got an answer for the blood being on his boots because the police took him to the scene. That in itself, just they should have been reprimanded for that, and just it gets worse.
It does get worse. But take me into the trial then. So it was 8 months. The window there of investigation, they'd already
charged him.
They'd already made their mind up. They charged him, and then is he remanded? And then
they put him in a child secure unit.
Right.
Took him to trial in 2005. 2005, I think, November. I'll be wrong. There's people online.
He waited till he was 16, didn't he?
He waited till he was 16. Alan Timmel, I'm just going to say this. This is where it gets dangerous for me, because Alan Till's probably one of the most powerful men in Scotland, High Court judges. At the time, he was the advocate deputy who had just helped prosecute Al McGrackie, you know, in the Lockerbie case.
Yes.
And he was used to all these props and Hollywood film stuff. He done the same with Mitchell. He built the V in the wall in the court, how difficult it was to climb over this V, and you had to, Jodi couldn't have went over there herself. Jodi Jones would have jumped over that V. Probably been over that V 100 times to get to the wee gang hut on the other side to smoke hash. And it wasn't a difficult place to get to, you know. I suppose if you're a big fat pathologist, you want to say her back. But anybody else, I mean, you went there now, you climb over it quite easily, you know. My dog jumps it, and David Dickey says when he got there, his 8 spaniels jumped over the wall, but one of them was too old, so he had to carry it. Psychologists pay attention to that. Oh, why you want to draw attention to your dogs? And there's all that stuff. But wasn't the trial was a farce.
How long was the trial? How long did it last?
It's the longest trial. I think it's the longest trial in Scottish history apart from Lockerbie.
Right.
28 days, am I right? I'll be wrong here. 26 days or 28, and they'll be pulling me, you didn't know your case. But it was built on circumstantial evidence. And he was into Marilyn Manson. I think he had one. See, the people who were into Marilyn Manson was Jodi's sister and her boyfriend, Stephen Kelly. Luke Mitchell had a missing knife and he had a pouch on it. And it had Jodi's date of birth and the day she died and a verse for Havana. Do you remember what was his lead singer's name again? Kurt Cobain?
Committed
the greatest
suicide.
day that ever come is the day we never met her, or something like that. So they used this, this is satanic stuff, and some of his drawings and writings at school. It all come from the fucking stupid do you know the games that they play? So if that made Luke Mitchell guilty, then I can tell you Stephen Kelly is the only guy I've known in this case that had real obsession for Marilyn Manson. The only person in here is the sister Janine. Her and Stephen Kelly had a real thing for Marilyn Manson. So if you're jailing somebody because you like Marilyn Manson, they should have been jailed. It was totally irrelevant. Really, he was into Marilyn Manson.
What was your opinion on Luke's relationship with his mother?
Listen, what they've done to Corey Mitchell is beyond belief, right? And I didn't know him in 2003. Some people liked him, some people didn't. Dr. Ian Stevens says we're having an unnatural relationship. I know the brother doesn't like the mum, they're estranged. I know the dad wasn't totally convinced. And I know some of the neighbours weren't convinced. Some of the neighbours believed that Corrine would have covered up for Luke Mitchell. If Luke Mitchell had killed Jodi, most people believe that Corrine would have lied through her teeth to protect her son. Over the years, listen, she's a damaged woman, but I've often asked the question, was she damaged before this, or did this damage her? And it doesn't matter who you are, you would have to be some kind of extra strong human being for this not to affect your life. So it's hard for me to judge how she was in 2003 to what I've noticed over the year. Do I believe that she would have lied for Luke Mitchell? Yes, I believe that. If Luke Mitchell had killed Jodi, I believe she would have told lies for her son. But has she lied? No, because there's nothing to lie for. The thing of the alibi, the brother's alibi, if you wanted just brother to lie for someone, surely you come up with a better alibi, and I don't know if he was in the house. Get me? He was upstairs masturbating, looking at porn. So how, if you're up masturbating, you wouldn't masturbate if you thought your brother was in the house. Was he in the house? I don't know. So surely if you're going to lie and you're going to create an alibi, you're going to create a better alibi than you would.
So that was his alibi? That
was his alibi. He was in the kitchen cooking dinner for his mum, and his brother was upstairs, and his brother says, I don't know if he was in the house.
So it's just a family alibi. It's nothing. It's really...
It's truthful. It's that nonchalant. That's what puts me off. Listen, I'll just say on record, I've never said this before, and the trolls always shout, what about his dad and what about his brother? His brother doesn't want nothing to do with him. And his brother doesn't want nothing to do with his mum either. They're estranged. And the father's the same. And but you don't know if part of this is because of what's happened with the media. I've asked people this before. If you were accused of killing a wee girl like Luke Mitchell was, right, and the press and the police were adamant it was you, how many friends and family would stick by you? Think about it. I've asked a lot of people that question, and people are like, my dad would definitely know it wasn't me, would they? No, they go and tell your dad that, listen, we're positive your son's killed this wee girl, look at what he's fucking done. A lot of dads would like, fuck him if he's done it. You know, fathers would turn against you. A lot of mothers wouldn't. And in this case, I think if Luke, me personally, I would take an oath that Luke Mitchell didn't kill Jodi. I would take an oath. I would never do that for any other case, because there's always, in this case, it's virtually impossible. How can he kill her? Somebody please tell me after 20 years how this wee boy had done it. So it's impossible. But if he had done the bad things that he was accused of, I believe his mother would have protected him. Right? I believe...
just like the other mother protected her son.
100%. I gave you a classic. Well, listen, Jodi's brother, do I believe that Jodi Jones' mum would protect her son? 100%. 100%. Would I believe Mark Kane's mum would have protected him if he had committed the murder? Yes, 100%. Norma Kane would have done anything for it. Norma Taylor would have done anything for her boy.
You showed me a photo. It's like the mother and the beast.
Beast. I believe that photograph sums up this case. And,
Who would you say that is? Like,
I believe that's Joseph.
and his mother?
His mother.
Jodi's mum?
His mother. I believe, listen, the people are going to say, you're dead shaming. I'm not dead shaming Jodi Jones. The only reason I've ever spoke out in this case is because he's Jodi Jones. I'll look you straight in the eye and tell you that. My whole motive in this case is because it was a wee girl. If that had been a gangland fight or a bank robbery or something, I would never have spoke out. It would have been none of my business and let the world go by. A wee girl was fucking butchered, mate.
Especially because the justice hasn't been served.
No, I can see that straight-faced, we're 100%, forget your trolls and your liars and all that. I'm telling you, justice has not been served in this case. Justice has not been done. It's delayed, and it will get done. I believe it will get done.
What's your opinion on Luke Mitchell as an individual? Like, when did you actually meet him or speak to him?
See, last time I spoke, I've wrote to Luke recently. People don't like the letters I sent to him because they're roughly telling me fucking got a grip yourself, you know, and his girlfriend didn't like, oh, how dare you question my Luke and all that. I met Luke Mitchell in 2010 or 2011, an intelligent boy, but you can tell he's troubled. Luke Mitchell's been in prison 20 years. Doesn't matter who you are. Come on, we've both know people who have done lots of time in prison. Jail affects people. 20 years in prison for a crime for such a heinous crime. And Luke Mitchell's badly advised. This is only me now. Very badly advised. His girlfriend. 3 years ago, Luke Mitchell had a campaign that was pretty powerful. 30,000 people signed a petition on his behalf for people to look into it. We had an MP writing letters on my behalf to certain people. I'm not going to say because I didn't want people trolled. An MSP writing letters on my behalf to certain people in the Crown in certain places to try and see if we could achieve something. We had Roddy Dunlop, a top QC, Casey, who was willing to do it pro bono because I explained to him a miscarriage of justice. This is bad on the justice system, mate. And so now he's got nothing. What the forensic team, he's got nothing. Luke Mitchell's got a girlfriend, and it's a sad reflection of Luke. She's threatening to burn people alive, and she's taken over the whole campaign, and the whole campaign's collapsed. Right, as far as I know, Luke Mitchell's up for parole again on the 15th April. I know there's a recent story that he got engaged. I believe he's been married. I believe that. I've never heard evidence. Just what I know, the situation. I believe he got married, no engaged, right? But I know for a fact he got engaged. But I don't know. I think he's been married, and I think he's going to the parole board. Look, I'm married now. I want to come out and start a new life, and please give me an opportunity.
See, when you spoke to him, I take it he's always protested his innocence.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Mm-hmm. Listen, Sangelina introduced me a man called Terry Mullins. A man of pure integrity. I noticed a troll the other day there, questioning him because James English interviewed him. Now James English has got to something about trouble or something, alleged trouble. People are now bringing in other people's integrity in here. They're just tramps, scum. Terry Mullins is a man a polygraph inspector. Polygraph inspector? He's a polygraph consultant. Brilliant, first class. And Sangelina introduced me to him. And I set up lie detectors in the prison. Never been done before in Boston. It's only been done twice, one for Luke Mitchell, one for a girl called Carla Nigo, and both were set up by me. The prison service thereafter stopped it. So Luke Mitchell done a polygraph test while he was in Shotts Prison. And the questions are pretty simple. Did you kill Jodi? Do you know who killed Jodi? No. Passed with flying colours. So for the 20 years that I've known this case, in 2010 and 2011 when I interviewed him, Mitchell always claimed his innocence. Now I ken that there's people in prison that have been 25 years in jail always maintain they're innocent. It doesn't mean to say they're innocent. But I think for somebody like Luke Mitchell to try and keep that secret 25 years in prison, I think, no chance. What makes it even harder, see, we were speaking about his mum. I quite like Corinne. I don't know if she was having sexual relationships with her son. Top psychologists say that she was unnatural. I read a report the other day that he fed to Lothian Borders Police, and his words were unnatural relationship. Take for that what you want. So they think because the son and the mother are too close to each other, he was able to manipulate the mother into doing anything, including getting money or smoking hash, having sex in the house with his girlfriend, because he controlled the mother rather than the mother controlling the son. That's roughly the report that a top psychologist gave to the police on Luke Mitchell. So they were convinced we've got a man. Do you know what I mean?
It's a mad sitting here with you because you've got so much knowledge on the case. See when you sat, like how many meetings did you have with Luke Mitchell?
Two.
Face to face in an interview room.
In an interview room.
So what's your opinion on him as a person, as an individual?
Well, listen, you want the truth? In the last couple of years, what I've seen. Listen, I was never involved after 2012, probably 2011, 12. I pulled away. I know pulled away, just you got in my life. There wasn't much else I could do. 2000, I think it was 21, Channel 5. Sandra Leen asked me to go on Channel 5, right? It's quite funny. I was in Channel 5 a lot longer, but they didn't like my strong Scottish accent. So they put it down to just a minute, which is all right, I'm all right with that. And then I wrote a book. I wrote it while in consultation with Sandra Leen to try and bring the case back into light again. I think I've done a brilliant job. People are going to say, what's he done for Mitchell? Oh, Jesus. The press, and Roddy Dunlop, Maggie Scott, do you know?
The documentary alone's
listen, and now they wanted to go down a road that I didn't want to go down. So it's just, now I didn't mind that. Me, I'm all right with it. But the way Luke Mitchell treats other people, women especially, some of them I don't like, by the way. I didn't dislike them, but I dislike what they do, right? They make themselves into, instead of sticking to campaigning, they start making themselves into QCs and lawyers, and they generally didn't understand what they're doing, and they probably cause more harm. However, some of the work some of these people done for Luke Mitchell was excellent, first class. Without these people, Mitchell's case would be dead, sort of thing, right? And the way he treats them, real shabbily, he got offered I'm laughing because he got offered the top QC recently, and a retired, I keep saying QC because it sounds always what I need, and a retired advocate and a KC came to me, and they were willing to do stuff pro bono to the commission, and Mitchell just dismissed them. He got offered help for Sean Toll. Sean Toll's the only man I know that's got parole while being in prison as an innocent man. How did they do that? It's worth listening to, surely, you know. Dismissed to hand. He treats people shockingly. He's got an arrogance, right? But that doesn't make him guilty of killing Jodi, you know. So do I like Luke Mitchell? I'm not really, I'm indifferent to Luke Mitchell. I don't like him, I don't dislike him. I dislike some of the things he does and his mum, especially the way him and his mum treat some of the people. Terrible, absolutely terrible. I understand their plight, but he should. So,
I think I asked you earlier on as well, but do you think we'll ever get justice?
Oh, 100%.
The truth will come out in this case?
Aye, definitely. Definitely. I'm saying it with a smile also. There's things. Listen, me and Sandra Leen felt it, Dr. Leen. God, this is her baby, this is her case, really. And we fell out because she wanted to go that way and I wanted to go that way, and different things, and people make mistakes, and including myself, I'm no, do you know. And but she was doing some great work with forensics, and that'll remain her work. That's only she can do that, and there's other people in the background doing things that they'll never go public with now, because when you go public, you didn't get trolled just by the trolls. The people closest to Mitchell are probably his biggest hindrance. That's only my opinion. The trolls are easy, don't they?
See, during the trial, do you think he lapped up the attention and that made it worse for him?
I think prior to the trial. Prior. But listen, it's not unusual.
The trial by media is,
aye.
So he was lapping that up, being like the centre of attention.
Listen, I don't know the full. But Luke Mitchell was medicated. See, after finding Jodi, Luke Mitchell was medicated.
Right.
Now, I don't know if that affected his behaviour or his mum's behaviour or whatever, but it's easy to say you should not have done that and you should not have acted like that, because hindsight's a wonderful thing, eh? And you've never been sitting in your living room with the world media parked outside your house. Although I've had media attention through this case and it's horrible. The real scum people. Listen, I've dealt with scum all my life and I've been scum. Some tabloid journalists are the worst people I've ever really. Journalists, I use that word lightly. They're no journalists, they're reporters. They're human shite. They're human excrement, honestly. Listen, and they have hundreds of them on your case. Parked outside your house taking photographs and they make sure they get the worst angle, but the driving away from the house and Mitchell giving that to the world press.
They just made him look like a monster. This is what they do.
And they played right into their hands. Now, the worst thing, I'm reiterating that again, the worst thing they ever done is allowed the media into their home. Corey Mitchell liked the attention. I'm going to say that. People are going to jump on me. You fucking shouldn't say that. But if I've said enough about Jodi's family, surely I should be honest with the other side, you know. I think Corey thrived on the attention. And it didn't do her boy any good. I'm not blaming her. Because the blame on this case relies on DC Dobie. Do you know, if they made a murderer for a schoolboy, I'm not caring how bad his mum is or how bad or good or whatever. They made it, so I'm not blaming anybody, but if you're asking me a question and I can be honest about Jodi's family, I want to be honest with Luke, I think Corey Mitchell thrived on the attention. I think the media part outside their house, there wasn't like it wasn't a burden. She was relishing it.
It's mad, isn't it? They're lapping it up. But
see the boy Mark Kane? It's not unusual for somebody like Luke Mitchell. Mark Kane's friends told me, Scott, it's like he's acting like he wants us to believe he done it. Why would anybody want that? People to think like that, but we can't all think the same.
So is that him that had the scratches in his face?
Yeah. Listen, he it doesn't matter who looks at his case. People still ask me, how are you sure he never done it? Because people don't know. He was never cleared.
He shaved his hair and that?
No, that was John Ferris. That was one of the moped boys.
Right.
See,
so he was totally separate, but he was never interviewed or anything.
Do you know what? More lies you tell. Again, I'm going back. Jane Hamilton, just pure lies, utter lies. The Daily Record. They said that Mark Kane was cleared. Mark Kane was never interviewed until after Luke Mitchell was found guilty, right? And then after they found him guilty, they says we had CCTV images of Mark Kane up in an off licence, but the off licence is like 3 miles away from where Jodi was found. It's at 11 o'clock at night. Now, I've been through this case and through the production list constantly, and there is no CCTV images of Mark Kane in a shop. So how was he cleared? He didn't even know where he was himself that day. All of a sudden, he tell the public he's cleared. He was investigated and cleared. Investigated? How was he investigated? They just told pure lies. The Daily Record, Jane Hamilton just told the public pure lies. Manufactured lies. It's not like saying that's that dark green instead of a light green. It's just saying that plant doesn't exist. It's just pure lies. And
I find it extraordinary that the jury could return a guilty plea with that evidence. As you said, they would have set the court up and stuff like that.
I said, you know, the jury were giving the Jones family that then. But again, listen, it's easy with hindsight as all sitting here, right? See, at the time, everybody believed Mitchell was a killer. I believe his lawyers believed it as well.
I believed it.
Everybody. So you're sitting in a jury. You're a respectable member. No jury members are respectable, but you're a respectable member of the community. And you're sitting in judgment of a man that you believe done that to a wee girl. I think most of them had him guilty before the trial started. Alan Timble's a first-class lawyer, KC. You know, Alan Timble sitting in judgment. His wife, Dorothy Bain, by the way, she's in head of the Crown, that signed the statements signed the forms for or productions to be destroyed. That in itself is a bit dodgy, right? But Alan Timble's a first-class KC. Now, if you can prosecute Lockerbie, that's another dodgy case, but if he's capable of doing that, how capable is he convincing a 14, 15-man jury? That'll be a wee man that's never been out the paper, him and his mum having sex with each other, and they're evil, and they've done this to a wee lassie, and it's your duty to find them guilty. And he only still got a majority.
Would you say that the police ended up finding out that they'd got it wrong and they've started to destroying evidence.
100%. 100%. See, when within weeks of Channel 5, Murder in a Small Town, they started destroying all the evidence. Oh, see, the production list, it's thousands of production were not on the indictment. Mark Kane's essays, the paper told you these, Lord Beckett told the appeal court that these essays didn't exist. We found the essays in 2021. Because of a whistleblower, a police whistleblower came to us and told us, do you know what's happening, Scott? No, what's happening? She started showing me the production list. This has all been destroyed. What? It's in the list, what they were destroying. So the police get this evidence to destroy what was not on the indictment. Stuff that had been hidden for the defence, right? And then they made a mistake. They erroneously destroyed everything that was on the indictment. So something like 4,000 productions were destroyed, everything in the case. Every single thing in that case is destroyed apart from DNA sperm samples and a couple of DNA samples at the Scottish Criminal Case Review Commission. I'm smiling at because that's going to catch them. From my opinion, they can't keep running forever, do you know?
No, definitely, and I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of the case and we'll get justice for that. But it's been fascinating sitting with you, Scott, right? But before we finish up in this episode, if there's another message you could send out to the audience regarding this case, now is the time.
Please, somebody come forward to help us. Somebody have a conscience. Somebody come forward that worked on that's maybe taking a confession or come forward who knows what happened that day. People know what happened that day. So, you ever watch a film called Mississippi Burning?
No, I remember it.
Do you remember the film?
The Deep South.
Deep South. Well, Deep South, I can see this because I'm from that area. Mayfield and East House is like the Deep South.
Right.
Massive big families, everybody knows each other. Do you know? Everybody's a cousin or married to cousins and second cousins, and right? Somebody knows what truly happened that day. Somebody's wife, somebody's husband, somebody's brother. Please speak up. Somebody, be brave. Listen, people have got kids now and they've got families and they've got homes, right? And they know if they speak up now, people are going to get in trouble. Maybe their dad's going to get in trouble or their mum or whatever. But somebody, listen, Luke Mitchell's 14. He's a fucking kid, mate. That's, to me, Stephen Kelly says, Stephen Kelly was wrong. Listen, would have been the fall guy, right? Stephen Kelly is Janine Jones's boyfriend at the time, right? And for years, people says that Kelly, because his sperm's on Jodi's t-shirt and the blood's on the bra, that he was having sex with Jodi. And his thing was, I'd rather be a killer than a beast. But just a lot of people would think that. If you'd seen the state Jodi was in, you wouldn't want both beasts. What kind of man, especially men, I'm just going to blame a man here, what kind of man can sit back and allow a 14-year-old child to go to prison for 20 years? All right, so you protected, maybe, in my view, you protect one man. And I can understand that, by the way. I'm not saying it's right. But I can understand if you've got a psychotic pal or a brother or a cousin or whatever, and he flips his lid that day and you start covering up. Once the cover-up started, you're too far in to come back. Right? That I can understand that. But to sit back and watch a 14-year-old boy go to jail for 20 years and destroy his family and all that, to me that's as bad as paedophilia. Only my opinion. People might disagree with that, but I think they will sit back and watch a kid get framed, get made a murderer, and you've got information that could save that kid from going away for 20 years and you didn't do it. To me, you're as bad as a beast. You're as bad as the killer. The killer of Jodi Jones is psychotic. He's frenzied. If you see what happened, I'm not excusing his murder, I'm not excusing his behaviour here. But whoever killed Jodi was mentally unstable. I'm not saying that he would have got off diminished responsibilities or something, but he was frenzied, didn't that? The people who framed Luke Mitchell, to me, are as bad as the killer. Only my opinion. But, and I don't think some of the people in this case set out to set up Luke Mitchell. I think he just sadly become the fall guy, yeah? Please talk. Somebody come forward and confess, but at least speak your mind, eh?
It's powerful, mate. Very
I hope
powerful.
So. No, I hope so.
And like I said, it's been a great pleasure sitting with you in the studio.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, on you
Powerful.
go.
History repeats itself, and things never happen once, twice. In this case, there's been a lot of whistleblower. Somebody sent Joe Jones's medical reports, which we've shared today,
Yes.
to protect you for what I'm saying, to make sure. Somebody sent him to a lawyer without ever being requested. Nobody ever wrote to a medical team requesting him. Somebody from that medical team read them and thought somebody should see them. So that's a whistleblower. Then we had a police whistleblower come forward. I'm smiling because there'll be a third and a fourth. There's no just two people in this world who have got a prying conscience. So I believe somebody's going to come forward, tell us more, show us
Hopefully,
more.
mate.
I hope
And
so.
I'm sure your theory will be proven correct, mate, because I agree with everything you say after looking into the case myself and being part of this interview.
Jim, it's no common sense. Listen, I've not solved any crime. I'm just based what's been put in front of me, and somebody asked me to make a judgment. I think I'm educated enough. I've got an educated opinion. It might be wrong, there's certain things here that I've got wrong, I'm not telling you I've got everything right. But when you look at the evidence in this case, one thing I'm positive. I'm near positive for everything I'm saying in this case, but what I'm positive for, Luke Mitchell didn't kill Jodi Jones. Of that, I'm certain, honestly. Listen, it's impossible. I'm not telling you he's a nice guy and he's got this wee halo over his head and him and his mat. I'm not playing that game, but he never killed that wee girl. He's been the local, he called himself, listen, I'm saying this, he called himself the local weirdo recently in one of the programmes, Channel 5 it was, when he spoke for Shotts Prison, he says he was a local weirdo. That's exactly what he was. He was a local weirdo, an easy target for police who had watched a crime scene. See when the forensics came back, they believed that they had the killer. I believe they bugged the house and all that, and they think him and the mother are evil and whatever, and we've got the killer. And they're waiting on the forensics coming back because the police were telling everybody in Dalkeith, we've got the wee cunt, we're just waiting on evidence. So they're waiting on the forensics coming back. See, when the forensics come back and says there's no link, they're too far down the rabbit hole, Paul.
So it was just a case of fitting them up then. But like I said, hopefully we get to the bottom of it.
Oh, hopefully.
And the truth will prevail.
Definitely.
But thanks again for coming
Thank
on,
you,
my
Jim.
friend.
Thank you, Paul.
It's been a real honour. Shake my hand.
Thanks very much, mate.
And I wish you well for the future, mate.
Thanks very much, Jim.
I'll see you very soon.